Are you serious?
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Well, this episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from. Need one now? Grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. Stock up today and stay energized. You're going to need that energy because it's a big sports weekend. Obviously, you have basketball. If you're a Major League Baseball fan, opening day was Thursday. Like, it's a big weekend. We got a lot of stuff. We got a lot of stuff happening. Yeah. I'm Jaron, that's Landon. Those are our social media ads. Hey, exciting news. We're back on Twitter. So follow us on X. We're on Locked On Mississippi State. We're on X. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. Not Facebook yet. Haven't heard anything on that, but still working on that. We're at least on Twitter. We've started following some of the Mississippi State fans. So give us a follow. We'll follow you back. We want to start some dialogue and some conversations on there. But speaking of conversations, we got to talk about this. So Athlon Sports, the company that I write for, they came up with an SEC spring football power ranking. I just want to clarify, it was not me that came up with this. So don't get all mad at me. This was Stephen Layson. So he has, So he ended up coming up with his ranking, and he's got Mississippi State dead last. And his reasoning, he says another tough schedule is on top for Coach Jeff Lebby's team in 25. Major improvement is needed on defense to contend for a bowl, which is pretty funny that he said that because that's actually going to be our topic next segment. Yeah. But let's talk about this real quick. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I mean, it's hard to disagree after a 2-10 season.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. I mean, any of the bottom three, Arkansas and Kentucky are who he has right above them. I mean, I guess if you really dug into it, you can make an argument to rearrange the bottom three in whatever order, for whatever point you're trying to make. But if you're trying to kind of use this not only as power rankings, but kind of predict how people will finish, it's hard to argue that Mississippi State won't be last, just because, as we've talked about, the schedule is so tough that when you look at that and what, they did last year, it's kind of hard to not put them, I mean, at best, maybe 15th, but it's kind of hard not to put them last.
Well, and like you said, I think they are a better team going into next year than Kentucky. But Kentucky doesn't have the schedule Mississippi State has, in my opinion. They have a tough schedule still. Don't get me wrong. They're in the SEC. They have a tough schedule.
Right.
They don't have the schedule Mississippi State has. Also, it's not really arguable, even though he's had a bad, last couple of years, especially last year. But Mark Stoops is a better coach right now than Jeff Lebby. Lebby's only done it 1 year. Mark Stoops is a legend, especially at Kentucky. I mean, he's all-time leading wins guy out there, and has really turned that program around because they were a laughingstock program before he got there.
Yeah,
but I would probably put them 15. And that's really the question. And I, like I said, I didn't write it, so that's kind of where I'm curious what went into it. Was it who he thought was going to fit, like these were the record rankings,
right,
or was it best team? Because if it's best team, I think Mississippi State's a better team than Kentucky next year.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, and I can even say you could make a case for them being better than Arkansas. I mean, just because, I watched Arkansas a decent amount last year. I don't believe in what they're bringing back either, but it has to have something to do with record, just based off of putting them at last. And like we've talked about that schedule so much, it's a murderer's row when you open SEC play. So, and there's a lot of questions on defense, like he mentioned, and we'll get into, but a lot of turnover.
Yeah, and he mentioned the schedule, so that makes me think it is record that he's going off of. The Arkansas one, I do understand a little bit. Like, I know Pittman has kind of struggled.
I mean, I say I get it, but you can make a case.
Right. He's been there 5 years. He's had 2 losing seasons. He's had 2 7-6 seasons. And then he had the 1 9-4 season, which kind of looks like the outlier at this point. But because Bobby Petrino is such a great offensive mind, and he completely turned that offense around last year, Taylor Green looked like almost like a Heisman candidate early in the season, especially. Till he kind of got banged up. That's kind of when he fell off. But I can understand Arkansas to an extent. Again, I think Kentucky's the one that you possibly probably should put Mississippi State over. I'm going to pull up Kentucky's schedule real quick, just so I can get an idea, because I know it's tough, but I know it's not near as tough as what Mississippi State has. So they open the season against Toledo, who beat Mississippi State just last year. But then they go, they have at home against Ole Miss, and that's a team they beat last year on the road. Actually, it was one of their 4 wins. They then play Eastern Michigan. They go on the road against South Carolina. They got Georgia on the road. They get Texas at home. You go South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, 4 straight games. Then you go Auburn on the road, which can always be tricky. Florida. Then you get the typical SEC easy game, Tennessee Tech. Then you end at Vanderbilt, at Louisville. So it's really, they have that. We talk about Murderers Row for Mississippi State. Kentucky has that too, with South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, and Auburn. I'm throwing Auburn in there just because it's on the road. But outside of that, I don't see much. I mean, yes, the Ole Miss game could be tricky, but I don't know what Ole Miss is this year or next year.
Yeah, I don't either. And then they end with Louisville, which, sometimes they're a very good team. Sometimes they're, not that good. Rivalry game. I get it. But, It's nowhere near as tough of a schedule as what Mississippi State faces, especially when you toss in Arizona State in the middle of that non-con.
Yeah, and like I said, when you look at their schedule, it's also different from Mississippi State in terms of a lot of their tough games are at home. Kentucky's at home versus Ole Miss, home against Texas, home against Tennessee, even home against Florida. But the Georgia one obviously on the road, South Carolina obviously on the road, and South Carolina is a tough place to play. But a lot of those games are at home, and so that's why I don't think the schedule's near as bad. But I just like what Mississippi State has done this off season. We're going to get into the defense more. We've been talking about the offense lately. If Blake Shapen can stay healthy, and then we talked about the running game and how much it improved as the season went on. We talked about the offensive line in yesterday's podcast, where we had 5 offensive linemen that played a lot of football. Now, 2 of them have started at Mississippi State. The other 3 are going to kind of come in, but they've played a lot of football. So it's all going to come down to that defense, like that was said in that deal. And again, we'll get into that later. But I think Mississippi State, I don't think they'll be in the cellar anymore, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think going forward, assuming that they do take some steps this year, it actually shows up on the field. We like what they're doing on the practice field and in the portal and in the recruiting. But if the results don't come on the field this year, it could be hard to continue to climb out, because will the next group believe in what's happening if the results aren't coming? But I don't think they're number 16. They're a better team than Kentucky. Will the record reflect this because of the schedules? Probably not, but I think it's one of those things where you'll look back and be like, man, we were a better team than what they put out there.
Right. I think Kentucky is probably typically your 2-win team in the SEC, because there usually is one every year. But because they play Toledo, Eastern Michigan, and Tennessee Tech, they're probably winning 3 games just off that. Whereas we went through Mississippi State's schedule, their best bet is probably go 3-1 in non-conference, with Arizona State as the 1 loss. And then if you can't win an SEC game, just like Kentucky can't, then you have the same exact record. I just think Mississippi State's the better overall team, but I understand why you're last. You go 2-10 the year before, you have another brutal schedule. You have a lot of unknowns with your team because it's a lot of transfers and stuff. I get it. It's hard. The best thing, go prove them wrong. That's the thing. Go prove them wrong.
Yeah, exactly what you said. Plus, maybe Kentucky gets a little bit of bump because of Mark Stoops' track record there.
Right.
But hey, you're in a good position. You have the whole nobody believes in us. That is
and that's fair. That's a good point about Mark Stoops, because that's his worst season since his first year in 2013. So it's not like he has many stinkers. He doesn't. Yeah. They usually do fairly well, especially for Kentucky standard in football. They do pretty well. So that is a good point. But yeah, I'm excited to see it. The one thing that stinks right now about spring is we're just talking football. I'm ready to actually start seeing football and getting to talk about that. But
at least the spring game,
thankfully, Mississippi's keeping that, so we'll have something to talk about with that and watch with that. So that'll be good. But all right, coming up next, we've talked about it a couple times. We got to talk about the defense. It was mentioned in that article. It's going to be key for improvement. We'll talk about that coming up next. Well, we're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada PRO-4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada PRO-4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Well, March is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. We have that happening this weekend. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, Landon, we got to get into the defense. This is obviously, we've talked a lot about the offense, and while the defense was terrible last year, we'll get into that. Understandably so, we've talked about the offense because that's what your head coach is known for. But looking at the stats, okay, so last year they finished 125th in total defense, allowing 456.4 yards per game. Compared to the year before, they were 41st and allowed 350.6 yards per game. So almost 106 more yards per game allowed defensively. They do return quite a bit of their production, on defense, 67%, which ranks 20th. While it's great to return players, I'm never going to argue that.
Right.
You're returning a lot of players that put up a bad stat defensively. So what do you think about the defense? Where do you think the most improvement is, and what really needs to be done?
I mean, what needed to be done is what they did. They went out and they found a bunch of new bodies to throw at the defense. And it's obviously not an official depth chart when you look at, the one that's out there right now. It's people's projections. But based on everything, it's 5 new starters, 5 new backups, and then 4 new guys as the third players listed. So, I mean, that's start one. When you have that bad of a defense, you have to start with overhauling the players. I mean, that's one. And then another thing you need to do is you need to look at your scheme and figure out, did I just not have the right players, or is my scheme bad?
Right.
And that's the big question for me, is the people they have calling the defensive plays. Mm-hmm. I know Coleman Hutzler, always get that wrong. I always try to put the Z in the wrong place. You have him, and then Matt Barnes is listed as the co-DC, but Hutzler's the guy in charge. I mean, was also a co-DC at UT or Texas when Tom Herman was there, and they had the crazy 3 different people calling plays. So not much of a track record. And then Matt Barnes, the co-DC, is the guy who was at Ohio State prior to Jim Knowles being there. Right. So, I mean, the guys who you have running it don't exactly have a track record of, prolonged success, and then you show what they did last year. Does that inspire confidence? Or, I mean, are you blaming the players, you blaming the coaches, or is it a combo? Is really kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and the one good thing that you have on that defense is you have a star at least, and you have a star at safety, Isaac Smith. Mm-hmm. He was All SEC second team last year. He led the SEC in tackles and ranked 7th nationally with 127. That's a lot for the safety position. I know he's kind of like a box safety, but the one thing I will say is, it's never a good thing when your safety is leading you in tackles. And it's not because he's not a great player. And like I said, he does play around the line of scrimmage some. It's because that means a lot of plays broke through, and he had to be the one that brings him down. Now, he does a great job at it, Obviously, he's second team All SEC, led the SEC in tackles, 7th nationally in tackles. Like, he's a great player. And that's the kind of player you got to build around. And you talked about how they're really trying to focus on the defense in the transfer portal. The defensive line has been shook up completely, which is great. But, looking at their stats, they're going to be one, and I will preface this for some of the fans. Mississippi State, because of the offense they run, they will never be one of the top defenses. And the reason, in terms of like total defense, so the better things to look at are like your SP plus, your analytical stuff.
Yes.
The reason that is because the offense is so fast paced that your defense is going to be on the field a lot more. So if you look at it like, let's say with a normal offense, the defense is on the field 6 times a game. And they allowed 4 touchdowns. And so that's 28 points. But in Jeff Lebby's offense, they're on the field 10 times a game and still allow 4 touchdowns. They still allowed 28 points. But one of them allowed them to score on 40% of their drives, and the other one's, 66% of their drives. So it's not – that's why you got to kind of look at the analytics with it. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean they were good at defense last year either.
Right.
Even with the analytics, if you look at that, I'm actually going to scroll real quick and see if I can't find their ranking. But they weren't great at defense, even when you look at the analytics. But that's why I want to preface that, and I don't want people to look at it next year and be like, well, they're still 70th in total defense. They could make a big jump defensively, but still give up the yard. Yeah, they were 110th in defensive efficiency. So that's the more important stat. They were 110th. So the 126 total yards is bad. The 110th is telling you it was really bad.
Yeah. A similar stat to that, and I remember this from way back in the day. It was one that we remember when the Big 12 was just every game was 70 to 60 all those years ago. People were pulling out this stat points per possession, and you would divide it. And that's something you consider when you have a high-powered offense, because if, like what you said, that 40%, if we gave up 4 touchdowns, but they had 13 possessions, that's did a great job in that. And when you have this kind of high-powered offense, creating turnovers is key,
right?
Especially if you get up and force that other team to throw and try to keep up with you. Creating turnovers is how you run away with the game, which I think that's kind of how they're trying to build this defense. As we mentioned, they went overhauled the defensive line, brought in 2 transfers to start in the secondary to go along with Isaac Smith, the all SEC guy. I mean, overhauling the secondary, overhauling the pass rush, that's how you create turnovers. Get to the quarterback and have guys who are ball hawks out there.
Yeah, I mean, especially if your secondary is lacking, you can help that immensely by having a great pass rush. I mean, we've seen that. Last year, they were 110th in turnovers forced. They forced 12 turnovers last year, so not good enough. I mean, they got to be better forcing turnovers. That's why, like, when you look at the efficiency, it really tells you more about it. I mean, how many times have we seen Army play, and because of their triple option, they hold the ball so long, their defense might allow 4 touchdowns on 5 possessions. But that's, you look at it and you're like, well, they only scored 28 points against Army. Like, how does a high-powered offense only score 28 against Army? Well, they scored 4 out of 5 drives. It's not like they had a bad day. Right. They did actually really good. They had a great game. They just only get the ball 5 times, and that's what happens. But, yeah, the defense, they got to get off the field better. They got to force – and that can be with turnovers. That can be with third down defense. Obviously, 4th down defense as well, because one thing we do know with teams, especially in college football now, they're big on analytics. A lot of teams are. And so if you're a team that struggles on 4th down, even if they're not a team that typically goes for it, the analytics might say 4th and 1 around midfield or just before midfield, we're going, because we know you can't stop it. And Mississippi State ranked 122nd in third down defense last year. So there's a lot of issues that they had to fix. It's not going to get fixed this offseason. No. They didn't just bring in the Georgia Bulldogs from 21. This didn't happen. I think it's going to be better. I wouldn't be surprised if efficiency-wise they're in the set. I would try to expect 70s, 80s range for efficiency. If you do that, that's a 40-spot jump. That's big.
Yeah, I mean, if you go from honestly terrible to just below average.
Right.
That's a huge jump and could mean a couple more wins, especially, healthy quarterback. You have a healthy quarterback, make that jump on defense. That might be 4 or 5 wins.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, come up next. We found an interesting little nugget. It's been going around. It's a little graphic talking about the basketball transfer portal. Has it killed college basketball? We're going to talk about that. That's coming up next.
Daylight savings snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Basketball madness, I've been staying up late watching all the games and all this tournament action, and 5-Hour Energy helps me keep up the next day. Extra daylight and extra activities with these longer days. I love getting outside, taking my dog for a walk, going for a hike or a run, and Tropical Burst is my go-to flavor for a quick boost. On-the-go convenience, whether I'm at a game or traveling, 5-Hour Energy is easy to grab and keeps me feeling refreshed. Now head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12 or 24 pack delivered right to your door. If you need one now, grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Jaron. That's Landon. Check out our social media right there. Landon, we don't have much time, but we got to talk about this a little bit. The basketball transfer portal, it's open, it's alive, it's
busy.
Yes, but it's also become a big part, obviously, in the sport. And we heard Stephen A. Smith say, I believe it was earlier this week, maybe on Monday, that he said this might be the beginning of the end for college basketball because we're not seeing as many upsets and all that. And so I saw this graphic, and I thought it was very interesting with how the sport is as of right now. And so the graphic is of the teams this year, and it's the top 8 players by minutes per game for every single Sweet 16 team. Outside of Duke, BYU has a lot, Houston has a lot, and let's see, Michigan State. Those teams have a lot of players that started there and are finishing there. Now, Duke, obviously, a lot of them are freshmen. I shouldn't say finish there. We don't know if they're going to finish, but Duke's a lot of them are freshmen, so they've been there a while. Houston, that's a program that Kelvin Sampson has built from the ground up, and so a lot of those guys been there and have just stayed there. And then Michigan State with Tom Izzo, that they're routinely one of the best programs. But like Auburn, 4 out of the 8. Michigan has only 1 of the 8. Ole Miss has 2 of the 8. Arizona has 3 of the 8. Alabama has 2 of the 8. Purdue actually is another team that has all 8. They're the only team that has all 8. Purdue is. Kentucky has 0. Tennessee has 4. Arkansas has 2. Now, and that's in the defense of Kentucky. They lose Calipari to Arkansas. Right. He has 3 Kentucky players on his team, so they probably would still be there if Calipari was there. 3 for Maryland, and then Florida has 3 as well. So compare that to 2019, at least those 2, 15 players total in the Sweet 16, top 8 players by minutes for every single team. 15 players total didn't go to the school they played for. Almost all the teams have 7 or more. Only Gonzaga is the only one that doesn't. They have 1, 2, 3 guys that didn't start at Gonzaga and start at lower levels, then moved up to Gonzaga. So That's just crazy to me of how the sport is. And we already saw, 2 players for Mississippi State so far enter the portal with Clary and then Nwoko.
Yeah. And I mean, I disagree with Stephen A on his whole, this is the death of college basketball. If anything, I think this is going to improve the on-court product of basketball. I mean, it's going to end up being the best players are playing with each other. I saw it described as the death of the Cinderella, and I think that's actually probably more what we'll see. I mean, you'll still see the upset, but you're not going to have a 13 seed making, a crazy run to the Elite Eight anymore because they're just going to run into teams that are too good. But I mean, it's definitely not the death of college basketball. I mean, even if all 4 number 1 seeds make it to the Final Four the next 10 years, I mean, everyone's still going to watch every game.
Well, and I think you're going to watch it more because this is the thing. I'm a big basketball fan. I love the upsets. Everyone loves the upsets.
Yeah.
But the ratings tell you they want to watch the big schools. Mm-hmm. This year, the ratings are the highest they've been in a long time. That's in the regular season. That's also in the tournament. So people aren't caring that there's not these Cinderellas. They're not caring that there's not these many close games or the buzzer beaters. Those are great. It's why we love March Madness. We love all of that. They just aren't caring. The numbers are saying they're not caring. And it's because at the end of the day, the big brands drive the sport. And that goes for every single sport. The big brands drive the sport.
And good basketball drives it too. I mean, eventually, because they know if all of these teams are blowing out these lower seeds, when those teams meet, you're going to get a great game. Right. And it's going to be all the big brands battling it out. And yeah, I love the upset. I'm always going to be hoping there's, 4 13 seeds sitting in the Final Four. Right. But I mean, no one would watch that if that happened in the end. I mean, I would, but that's
right
because I'm a sicko. No,
right. Well, it's like 2 years ago, San Diego State's in the national championship. I watched it. I love college basketball. Was I as interested as Kentucky and Kansas were in it? No, I wasn't. But I still watched it, and it was like obviously it was also one of the least viewed national championships of all time because people just didn't care. They always say I think people love the upsets in that first round. Mm-hmm. But after that first round, they're kind of like, all right, we need the big schools to start winning.
I think that year
we had San Diego State, Florida Atlantic in the Final Four, and they played each other. And people, I think, early on were like, awesome. And then as they kept going, it's like, can someone please beat them? I don't know anyone on that team. They're not going to the NBA, and I'm sure some of them did. I don't remember everyone on the roster. I'm just saying in general, they're like, can we watch someone else at this time? And I will say the last 2 years, we've had a lot of upsets or a lot of mid-major schools go far. Mm-hmm. And so this is just one of those years that we just didn't have it.
Yeah, it's like the individual, like to the individuals, they love the upsets. In theory, we love the upsets, but we're not going to watch the upsets. We want to see that it happened. Or you watch the last 5 minutes to see it in. You're not watching it start to finish.
Well, and a lot of fans, they just want to see the big team lose, and they don't care who it is. So a lot of people hate Duke. They don't care who Duke loses to. Obviously, it's funnier when they lose to a 15 seed, but if they were to lose to Arizona or if they're going to lose to, whoever, they're just as happy. Yeah, they still lost, and they didn't win it. So I don't think the sport is dead. Like I said, Mississippi State had 2 portal entries so far. We'll talk more about that on Monday, so don't miss that episode. We'll also have our top dog of the week, so you don't want to miss that. But thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shane and Andy Patton. March is here, so be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Jaron. Check out my work at Athlon Sports. A lot of college basketball, a lot of college football, SEC talk. That's Landon. Follow him on social media. Follow us now. Locked On Mississippi State, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Still haven't got the app working to create our content that we put on Instagram and TikTok. As soon as that gets working, we'll start putting content back out there. But for the meantime, we're going to be tweeting and stuff. So check us out over there. Give us a follow. Talk to us. We'll follow back. Like, share, subscribe to this video. Tell your friends. All the good stuff.
Yeah.
But until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.